Found out my parents put my brother as the sole heir, so I quietly stopped paying their bills. Then Dad texted, "We need you." I simply replied, "Not my problem anymore." Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into the story. I always believed that family was supposed to have your back. That no matter what happened, no matter how messy things got, you could count on them when everything else fell apart. That was before I learned the hard way that in my family, loyalty was a one-way street. It all started when my Uncle Rick got a little too drunk at Derek's birthday dinner. Derek, my older brother, golden child, walking embodiment of he can do no wrong. My parents always acted like we were a team, like we were equals. They hammered it into my head growing up. We're one family. One unit. Yeah, right. At dinner, the drinks were flowing, the steaks were sizzling, and for a few hours, it actually felt good to be around them. I laughed at my brother's dumb jokes. I nodded along as Dad gave one of his usual long-winded speeches about legacy and building something that lasts. And then Uncle Rick, half a bottle deep, leaned across the table and said, real loud, "You boys are lucky. Not everyone gets a whole house handed down to them." I blinked. House? Uncle Rick nodded toward Derek. "Yeah, your folks already transferred the title. Derek's name's on it now. Smart move. Lock it down before anything happens." I sat there smiling like an idiot while my whole world shifted under my feet. My parents said nothing. Mom just smiled tight, like she hoped nobody would notice. Dad stared at his plate. They didn't correct him. They didn't deny it. They didn't even look sorry. I excused myself from the table before I did something stupid. My girlfriend Maggie caught my eye across the restaurant. She knew something was wrong. She always did. But I just shook my head. I needed to be alone for a second. I needed to breathe. The thing is, it wasn't just the house. Over the next few weeks, I started putting the pieces together. My name wasn't on anything. Not the savings accounts I had helped fund when Dad's business went belly up 2 years ago. Not the family vacation cabin I had spent 2 summers renovating for them. Not even the life insurance policies I had been paying the premiums on for everyone's security. Everything, legally and financially, was tied to Derek. Everything. I felt like an idiot. A used, loyal, stupid idiot. Because guess what? While Derek was off, finding himself for the better part of a decade, I had been the one quietly covering their bills. Mortgage payments, medical emergencies, car repairs. Whenever things got tight, it was me pulling out my credit card. It wasn't even that they picked Derek over me. It was that they expected me to keep paying for it. They were living comfortably, pretending it was our future, while I was killing myself at a dead-end job just to make sure the lights stayed on in a house I didn't even own. When I told Maggie what I found out, she didn't even look surprised. She just said, "Logan, you're the only one still pretending they see you the same way." I didn't argue. I couldn't. She was right. The worst part? I wasn't even angry at first. I was just numb. I realized that if I didn't change something soon, I was going to wake up at 40, broke and alone, still paying off debts for people who didn't give a damn whether I had anything left. So I made a decision. Quietly. No big announcement. No drama. I just stopped. Stopped paying their bills. Stopped sending helpful money transfers. Stopped picking up shifts to cover their shortfalls. I wanted to see how long it would take before they even noticed. At first, nothing happened. Days turned into weeks. The phone calls kept coming, but not for anything important, just the usual "how's work?" and "when are you coming over for dinner?" It was surreal, sitting across from Maggie and watching my phone buzz with Dad's name, knowing he had no idea I was already out. It wasn't like I had left them in the lurch immediately. I had prepaid a few bills, the gas, the internet, even the car insurance. I wasn't cruel. I just wasn't stupid anymore. Maggie kept checking in with me, like she was expecting me to crack and run back. "You sure about this?" she asked one night, her head resting on my shoulder. "Positive," I said, and I meant it. Still, part of me kept waiting for the shoe to drop, for someone to realize that the easy, invisible safety net they'd leaned on for years was gone. It took exactly 52 days. I remember the number because I'd started counting in my notes app, like a little private scoreboard. 52 days of silence, 52 days of nothing, before the cracks started showing. The first sign was the electricity bill. They must have gotten one of those big red final notice letters because Dad called, voice tense, but still trying to sound casual. "Hey, Logan, you wouldn't believe these new billing fees. Total scam, right? They're hitting everyone. Think you could spot us for the next couple months until it levels out?" He said it like he was doing me a favor, like letting me help them was some kind of gift. I smiled to myself and said I'd check my budget. Then I hung up and did absolutely nothing. The second sign was Mom texting me at midnight about the glitch at the insurance office. Apparently, the car insurance had been canceled for non-payment. She didn't ask outright for money. Oh no, not her style. She just dropped hints, like little breadcrumbs I was supposed to follow. I didn't follow. And finally, the house. The glorious, already signed over to Derek house. I drove by one evening, not to snoop, just to satisfy some dark, masochistic curiosity, and saw the for sale by owner sign slapped in the front yard. I laughed so hard I had to pull over. The next time I talked to Maggie about it, I told her everything, every stupid, petty detail. I spent $9,400 last year helping them save the family home, I said, showing her the spreadsheet I'd made. $9,400 I'll never see again. And for what? A house I don't even get to visit anymore without an appointment. Maggie was quiet for a second, then she said the thing I hadn't dared let myself believe. Maybe they always knew you wouldn't fight back. It hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't just the safety net. I was the plan. Around this time, Derek started popping up more often, too. Not at my place. He was too proud for that. But through text messages and awkward calls. Hey, bro, you know how it is, rough patch right now. Mom and Dad are just stressed. You should come around more. Bring some good vibes, you know. Good vibes. Right. The man who partied through 2 jobs, wrecked 2 cars, and still somehow got to be the heir, wanted me to bring good vibes to the family funeral he helped create. I didn't answer. Not the first time. Not the second. Not even when he called me 3 times in a row at 1 a.m. and left a rambling voicemail about how things aren't the same without you, man. Of course they weren't the same. For the first time in their lives, they were standing on their own feet. And they hated it. I thought they'd eventually figure things out. Sell a few things. Downsize. Get a loan if they had to. But no. They dug in instead, like they could just will the universe back into letting them live comfortably. With me footing the bill, of course. The for sale sign disappeared after a few weeks. Word got around through mutual friends that they couldn't find a buyer. Too much deferred maintenance. Too many little hidden problems. Problems I used to fix quietly before they even noticed. Now, the roof leaked. The heating was shot. The backyard was a jungle. One night, Derek showed up at my door. No call. No warning. Just a knock at 8:30 p.m. while Maggie and I were halfway through a movie. I opened the door, and there he was, standing in the hallway looking like a kid who lost his mom at the grocery store. Logan, bro, can we talk? Maggie squeezed my hand gently and went to the kitchen, giving us space. I let him in, even though every bone in my body told me not to. He launched straight into the sob story. How Dad's old clients weren't paying their invoices. How Mom's side hustle wasn't covering the bills anymore. How the bank was screwing them by demanding full mortgage payments instead of working with them. It's just a rough patch, he said. Temporary, man. If you could just float them for a little while longer, we'll get it all sorted. Mom and Dad still love you, you know that, right? Your family. I stared at him. Really stared. This man, this 30-year-old man-child, had been handed the keys to the kingdom. The house. The savings. The respect. And now he wanted me to come clean up the mess he helped create? I leaned back and crossed my arms. How much do you need? I asked. He brightened instantly. Not much, man. A few thousand. Just to buy some time. A few thousand, I repeated. After all the other few thousands I already gave. He laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. Come on, bro. That's different. This is serious. It was serious then, too, I said quietly. I could see it, the realization flickering behind his eyes. That I wasn't the same doormat I used to be. That maybe, just maybe, Logan wasn't going to bail them out this time. He tried switching tactics. Look, they didn't mean to hurt you, man. It's just, you know how it is. You're solid. Reliable. They thought you'd always be around. And because of that, I said, voice sharp, they decided I didn't need anything back. Derek's mouth opened, then closed again. He had no argument because deep down, he knew I was right. I stood up and opened the door. I think you should go. He looked genuinely stunned. Like it hadn't even crossed his mind that I might say no. Logan, please. Just think about it, okay? I'm begging you, man. I didn't say a word. Just held the door open and stared at him until he finally slunk out into the night. Maggie came back from the kitchen as I locked the door behind him. Proud of you, she said simply, wrapping her arms around me. I rested my forehead against hers and whispered. Took me long enough. A week later, the utilities got shut off. First the water, then the electricity, then the internet. They must have been scrambling because the next thing I knew, Dad was calling me at work, leaving a frantic voicemail about ungratefulness and family duty. I didn't answer. I didn't call back. I was done. I knew they'd come up with something worse than guilt-tripping eventually. And sure enough, it came disguised as a family meeting. Dad texted me on a random Tuesday afternoon. Come over. We need to talk. It's important. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Maggie peered over my shoulder and raised an eyebrow. You gonna go? I didn't want to. Every instinct in me said it was a trap. But another, smaller voice, the old voice, the dutiful son, whispered that maybe I owed it to myself to hear whatever half-baked lie they were cooking up. So I went. The house looked rough. The porch light was burned out. The grass was knee-high. The siding was starting to peel. Inside, it smelled like dust and stale coffee. Mom sat stiffly on the couch, wringing her hands. Dad stood by the window, arms crossed like a disappointed principal. Derek lounged in a chair, trying to look casual but twitching with nerves. Nobody offered me a drink. Nobody even said hello. Dad cleared his throat. "We've been thinking," he started, like it was some grand royal decree. "And we realize maybe we should have communicated better." I bit back a laugh. Communicated better? They hadn't communicated anything until Uncle Rick drunkenly blew the whistle. Mom jumped in, her voice high and brittle. "It's not that we love Derek more. It's just, he needs more help. He's fragile." Derek didn't even blink at that. No embarrassment. No shame. Dad nodded like it made perfect sense. "And you're strong, Logan. You've always been the one we could count on." There it was again. Strength as punishment. Reliability as a leash. I stayed silent long enough for Dad to get to the real point. "We want to move forward," he said. "We think it's fair if you keep helping out, just until Derek can get his feet under him." "And after that?" I asked. My voice was calm. I think that scared them more than if I'd yelled. Dad shifted awkwardly. "After that, we'll see." Translation. After that, they'd string me along again. After that, they'd find new reasons. After that, they'd still expect me to sacrifice while Derek lived rent-free in every sense of the word. I looked at each of them in turn. Mom's watery eyes. Dad's tight jaw. Derek's blank, expectant face. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. No guilt. Just cold, clear certainty. "No," I said. The silence was deafening. Mom gasped softly like I'd slapped her. Dad's face turned a dangerous shade of red. "Logan, don't be dramatic," he barked. "I'm not." I stood up. "You made your choices. Now you live with them." Derek sputtered. "Bro, you're seriously gonna leave us hanging like this? After everything we've done for you?" That broke me. I laughed. A short, sharp sound that didn't even sound like me. "Everything you've done for me? Like handing my inheritance to you behind my back? Like lying to me for years? Like letting me drown in debt to pay for your mistakes?" No one answered. There was nothing left to say. I walked to the door, paused with my hand on the knob. "You need help?" I said quietly. "But it's not the kind I can give." Then I left, shutting the door behind me for good. The text came later that night. 2:14 a.m. From Dad. "We need you." No hello. No apology. No acknowledgement of anything that had happened. Just 3 desperate words. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. "Not my problem anymore." And I turned my phone off. The crazy thing? After I sent that text, after I finally drew that hard, immovable line, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not instantly. Not like some movie where the music swells and everything is fixed. But the pressure, the gnawing guilt, the constant feeling that I was somehow failing people who didn't even appreciate me, it started to lift. Slowly, steadily, like a weight sliding off my chest, one brick at a time. Of course, my parents didn't take the hint. At least, not right away. The next few weeks were a mess of calls, texts, even letters, actual handwritten letters like it was 1,950, alternating between anger, guilt-tripping, and full-blown pity parties. "How could you abandon your family? We sacrificed so much for you. You're not the son we raised." Each message chipped away at the little sympathy I had left. Maggie and I talked about it a lot during those nights, sprawled across the couch with takeout containers scattered around us like trophies. "You don't owe them anything," she said once, tapping her chopsticks against her takeout box for emphasis. "Families that love you don't build you just to bleed you dry." She was right. I hadn't left them. They had left me. The second they decided I was only valuable for what I could give, not who I was. Then came the inevitable social media fallout. Apparently, Dad and Mom decided that if guilt-tripping me privately didn't work, they'd try it publicly. Passive-aggressive Facebook posts. Cryptic, "Some people aren't who you think they are" statuses. Even a GoFundMe campaign Derek launched to save the family home, complete with a sob story about how unforeseen hardships had left them in need. They didn't mention me by name, but anyone who knew the situation could put 2 and 2 together. I didn't respond. Not once. I let them spiral. And man, did they spiral. The GoFundMe raised less than $300 in 2 weeks. Mostly from elderly relatives who still thought Derek was some poor, misunderstood kid. The house eventually went into foreclosure. The utilities stayed off. Their once pristine reputation in our little town crumbled like a stale cookie. I should have felt sad. Once upon a time, I might have. But now I just felt free. I started saving money. Real money, not barely making rent money. Maggie and I moved into a bigger apartment. I picked up certifications for my job that led to a fat promotion 6 months later. We even started planning a real future. Vacations, maybe buying our own place. Dreams that once felt like fairy tales because I was too busy carrying other people's burdens. Life, in short, got better. Way better. Then, because life has a twisted sense of humor, Derek showed up again. Not in person this time. Through a Facebook message. Bro, I get it now. You were right. They used us both. I'm trying to get out. I want to fix things between us. Let's grab a beer sometime. I stared at that message for a long, long time. Maybe he really had changed. Maybe he was just desperate again. Maybe both. But here's the thing. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness doesn't mean volunteering to be hurt twice. I didn't block him. I didn't cuss him out. I didn't even respond. I just closed the app, put my phone down, and went back to laughing with Maggie over dinner. Because I finally understood something they never taught me growing up. You can't build your life on people who only show up with empty hands and hungry mouths. You build it with the people who bring their own bricks. It's funny. If you had told me a year ago that walking away would add to my life instead of shrinking it, I wouldn't have believed you. I thought cutting them off would leave a gaping hole. I thought I'd wake up every day wondering if I made a mistake. But what actually happened? I woke up lighter. I had time. I had peace. I had energy to put into the things and the people that actually gave something back. Mom eventually sent one final letter. A real, physical letter in her delicate, careful handwriting. No guilt trips this time. No demands. Just a few paragraphs about how she missed me, how things hadn't turned out the way she hoped, how she wished I would come back before it's too late. I sat with that letter for a long time. I turned it over in my hands, tracing the ink, the creases, the smudges where she must have cried. And for a moment, I almost let the old instincts pull me back. Almost. But then Maggie came home, tossing her keys in the bowl by the door, humming some random song under her breath. She smiled when she saw me. That big, easy smile she gave only to me, and I remembered exactly why I wasn't going back. I folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and tucked it into a drawer. Not to forget, not to punish, just to close the chapter. Some wounds don't need salt poured into them every day. Some just need time and distance to heal. A few weeks later, I got a promotion at work. Big one. Corner office, 6-figure salary, handshake from the CEO, kind of big. Maggie surprised me with a dinner reservation at the fancy rooftop restaurant downtown. The kind of place where they fold your napkin for you and call you sir, like you're royalty. Halfway through the meal, she raised her glass and said, "To leaving dead things behind." We clinked glasses, and I realized she wasn't just talking about my parents. She was talking about every version of me that had ever felt not enough. Every part of me that had bent over backward for scraps of love and called it loyalty. Later that night, on the drive home, I asked her, "You think they'll ever realize what they lost?" Maggie thought about it for a second, then shrugged. "Maybe," she said. "But by the time they do, you'll be so far ahead, it won't even matter anymore." I smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I believed it. I don't check their Facebook pages anymore. I don't ask around for updates. Last I heard, Derek moved to another town, chasing another half-baked dream. Mom and Dad rent a small condo now, scraping by on part-time jobs and bitterness. But that's not my story anymore. It's just background noise. My story is here. With Maggie. With real friends. With my own house, bought and paid for by me. With no strings, no secret deeds, no golden children lurking in the shadows. Sometimes I sit out on the back deck, coffee in hand, and watch the sunrise. It hits different when you know you earned it yourself. When you know you don't owe anyone your breath, your money, your future. When you know that walking away wasn't giving up, it was growing up. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.